English learners. Welcome back to English Pod. My name is Marco.
And I'm Erica.
And today we're going to be taking you to the airport.
That's right. We're going to listen as a man checks in at the airport and deals with his luggage.
That's right. So we're going to be looking at a lot of great stuff that can help you the next time you are at the airport at the check-in counter. So why don't we take a look at one word that we're going to preview today in Vocabulary Preview.
Vocabulary Preview.
We're going to hear this guy say, I'd like to check 3 pieces.
He's going to check 3 pieces of what?
Pieces of luggage.
So when we talk about luggage, we can say pieces of luggage.
That's right. Luggage is a non-count noun. So you can't say 1 luggage, 2 luggages, 3 luggages. That's wrong.
Right. So we use
pieces of luggage.
Okay. So 3 pieces of luggage. Very good. Let's listen to our dialogue for the first time. We're going to see what happens with this guy at the airport and with his pieces of luggage.
Next, please. Hello, sir. May I see your passport, please?
Yes, here you go.
Will you be checking any bags today?
Yes, I'd like to check 3 pieces.
I'm sorry, sir. Airline policy only allows 2 pieces of checked luggage at 20 kilograms each, plus 1 piece of carry-on luggage. I will have to charge you extra for the additional suitcase.
What? Why? I'm taking an intercontinental flight. I'm flying 16,000 kilometers. How am I supposed to take only 2 20-kilo bags? That's absurd.
I'm sorry, sir. There's nothing I can do. You cannot board the flight with that large bag either. Carry-on bags must fit in the overhead compartment or under your seat. That bag is clearly too big.
Now I see. You charge next to nothing for an international ticket. When it comes to charging for any other small thing, you charge an arm and a leg. So tell me, miss, how much will I have to pay for all of this?
Let's see. $625 US.
That's more than my round-trip ticket!
All right, well, that's a whole lot of money, isn't it?
Well, I think it's a very common situation. I'm sure many of our listeners can relate to this situation.
Overweight charges are pretty expensive.
Very high.
I know from personal experience. But that's not what we want to talk about now. We want to talk about some really useful vocabulary in Language Takeaway.
Language Takeaway.
All right, on Language Takeaway today, we have 5 words. So why don't we start with the first one?
So the woman asked, will you be checking any bags today?
Will you be checking any bags today?
To check bags.
Right, so the verb to check.
It means to give your bags to the airline, to register them.
Okay, so that's what happens with your luggage. You check them, so basically they become responsible for your bags.
Right. It reminds me of checking into a hotel.
Right, very similar. When you go to a hotel, you register at the hotel, you check in. In this case, you just check your luggage.
You don't check in your luggage.
Right.
Okay, so check luggage.
So he wanted to check 3 pieces of luggage, and he also had carry-on luggage.
Carry-on luggage.
Carry-on.
So carry-on luggage, it's pretty simple.
That's right, you carry it on yourself.
Exactly, you carry it onto the plane. Now,
Okay.
we can talk about carry-on luggage, right? Mm-hmm. Or carry-on bag.
Right, or a carry-on suitcase. Mm-hmm. A very small suitcase that can fit under your seat.
Exactly. All right, so carry-on luggage. Now, he was traveling on an intercontinental flight.
Intercontinental.
Intercontinental.
We have 2 words there. Inter.
Between.
Between, right? And continental.
So this sounds like continent.
Okay, so he's traveling maybe from Asia to North America.
Okay, intercontinental.
He's trying to board this intercontinental flight.
So to board a flight.
Board a plane.
Board a train.
All right, so basically it means to
get on.
To get on.
To get on a vehicle.
Okay, so I can say board the ship. Board the car.
No.
No?
No. But board the train.
Board the train.
Board the bus. All aboard.
That's right. That's why in movies you see that somebody will yell all aboard.
Yeah.
In the train station, right?
Exactly.
All aboard. Okay, so board a vehicle. And our last phrase for today, overhead compartment.
Overhead compartment.
Overhead compartment.
All right, let's break this phrase down. Overhead.
So that's on top of your head, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Above you.
Yeah. And the compartment is a place where you can put something and store it. Mm-hmm. Kind of like a box.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have an overhead compartment, that big box where you put your bags and your purse or whatever on an airplane. Mm-hmm. Very similar to, for example, an overhead projector.
Right. So that's the machine that puts an image or a picture on a wall. Like sometimes you see them in meetings.
Right. So because the image is over your head and it's
Yep.
big, it's called an overhead projector.
Okay. So some great language. Why don't we hear it again in context by listening to the dialogue for the second time?
Next, please. Hello, sir. May I see your passport, please?
Yes, here you go.
Will you be checking any bags today?
Yes, I'd like to check 3 pieces.
I'm sorry, sir. Airline policy allows only 2 pieces of checked luggage at 20 kilograms each, plus 1 piece of carry-on luggage. I will have to charge you extra for the additional suitcase.
What? Why? I'm taking an intercontinental flight. I'm flying 16,000 kilometers. How am I supposed to take only 2 20-kilo bags? That's absurd.
I'm sorry, sir. There's nothing I can do. You cannot board the flight with that large bag either. Carry-on bags must fit in the overhead compartment or under your seat. That bag is clearly too big.
Now I see. You charge next to nothing for an international ticket. But when it comes to charging for any other small thing, you charge an arm and a leg. So tell me, miss, how much will I have to pay for all this?
Let's see. $625 US.
No, that's more than my round-trip ticket.
All right, so I think it's a little bit more clear now. And with this, it's time for us to take a look at some great phrases in putting it together.
Putting it together.
So this guy was pretty angry about this airline policy, and he said, "How am I supposed to?
How am I supposed to?
How am I supposed to?"
Okay, so before we get into explaining this, why don't we listen to a couple of examples so we can try and understand what it means?
Example 1.
How am I supposed to fit the dog in the car? There are 10 people in there already.
Example 2.
How is she supposed to get to work if her car's in the shop?
Example 3.
How are we supposed to know the answer to that? It's impossible.
Okay, so I can understand that it means, how can I do this?
Right. How do you expect me to do this?
How is it possible for me to do this?
Very good.
It's a phrase you use when you're frustrated, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're maybe a little bit frustrated or you're maybe nervous of something that you can't do or don't know how.
Yeah, this phrase, it's not impolite, but it sort of gives the idea that you're challenging the other person a little bit.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So a good phrase that you can use in different situations and you can try and mix it up with different verbs, right?
Right.
All right. Now let's take a look at our next phrase. I'm sorry, sir. There's nothing I can do.
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 So basically, the woman can't help the man, even though he's insisting and he's pushing that he wants another solution.
Yep.
Right? So finally, she says, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do.
So we use this phrase when someone's pushing you too much, right?
Right, and you would use it only in that situation towards the end because it is a little bit...
It's strong.
It's not impolite, but it's just you're saying, you know what, I'm sorry, I can't do anything about it. Now let's move on to our third phrase. You charge next to nothing.
Next to nothing.
Next to nothing.
Next to nothing.
All right, so we're talking about charging, we're talking about money. Why don't we listen to some examples of what this next to nothing phrase means?
Example 1.
Do you like my new house? It was so cheap that it almost cost next to nothing.
Example 2.
Let's go to Thailand. Tickets cost next to nothing right now.
Example 3.
The real estate agent charged me next to nothing for his commission, so I got a really good deal.
So when something costs next to nothing, it's really cheap, right?
It's really cheap, or you consider it to be cheap. And now, for our last phrase, it's the complete opposite of next to nothing.
Right. Charge an arm and a leg.
An arm and a leg.
An arm and a leg.
All right, so this means it's really expensive.
It's so expensive, it's like giving your arm and your leg.
Right, to pay for it.
Yeah.
Very good. So next to nothing, really cheap. An arm and a leg, really expensive.
Can we look at the use here? All right, so in the dialogue we heard, you charge an arm and a leg, but we can also say it costs an arm and a leg.
Right, because we are referring to money, right?
All right, so some great phrases here. Now I think it's time we listen to our dialogue one more time.
Hello, and welcome to the English Podcast Zone. I'm excited you're here today because we're diving into a very real and often frustrating travel experience, dealing with luggage policies at the airport. If you've ever traveled by plane, especially internationally, you've probably faced confusing rules, extra charges, and maybe even had to repack your suitcase in front of the check-in counter. It's stressful, right? Let's walk through this topic in a way that not only prepares you for real travel situations, but also helps you speak confidently and naturally in English. I'll be teaching you practical phrases, useful expressions, and key vocabulary that real people use when flying. First, let's talk about a super common phrase, to check luggage. This means giving your bags to the airline so they can store them in the cargo area of the plane. You'll usually hear the question, will you be checking any bags today? Here, checking means registering your bags with the airline, not inspecting them. Many English learners confuse this with check-in or check-on, so here's a quick breakdown. Check-in means registering yourself when you arrive at the airport. Check luggage means handing your bags to the airline. Carry-on luggage is what you keep with you on the plane. Carry-on bags must follow size and weight limits. If your bag doesn't fit in the overhead compartment or under your seat, the airline might make you check it in and charge you for it. That's why knowing this phrase is important. Carry-on bags must fit in the overhead compartment or under your seat. The overhead compartment is the storage space above your head on the airplane. A compartment is just a container or section for storing things. Now, have you ever been told you have to pay a fee for having one extra bag? You might hear, airline policy allows only 2 checked bags at 20 kilograms each. Many airlines have strict limits, especially for intercontinental flights between continents, like from Asia to Europe or from North America to Africa. These long journeys often require more luggage, but the rules don't always help travelers. This brings me to one of today's most expressive phrases. It costs an arm and a leg. It means something is extremely expensive. For example, the extra baggage fees cost an arm and a leg. And in contrast, when something is very cheap, we say it costs next to nothing. You could say, the ticket was so cheap, it costs next to nothing. Now, here's a great structure that English speakers use when they're frustrated or confused about how to do something. How am I supposed to, for example? How am I supposed to pack only 2 bags for a month-long trip? How are we supposed to travel light with kids? How is she supposed to carry everything on her own? This structure shows frustration or disbelief. Use it when a situation feels unfair or impossible. So, to recap naturally, at the airport, you may need to check your luggage, pay attention to carry-on size rules, and prepare for possible extra charges. Learning how to express your confusion or frustration in polite but firm English will help you stand your ground and navigate tricky travel situations more smoothly. Traveling by plane can often feel like a game of rules, especially when it comes to luggage. So let's keep exploring this topic with even more vocabulary, natural expressions, and tips that will help you sound like a fluent traveler in English. One thing many travelers overlook is the fine print in airline policy. That term, airline policy, refers to the rules and guidelines created by each airline. These policies cover everything from luggage limits to boarding procedures. You might hear a sentence like, according to airline policy, passengers may only bring one piece of carry-on luggage. Learning how to understand and talk about these policies in English can save you both money and stress. Let's look at an example sentence you might hear at the airport. I'm sorry, sir. Airline policy only allows 2 checked bags at 23 kilos each. This sentence is calm and polite, but firm. If you're ever on the other side of this conversation and you're the one explaining the rule, this is a good structure to use. I'm sorry, but rule. Now let's focus on the phrase, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. This is often used when someone has reached the limit of what's allowed and the staff cannot bend the rules. It's not rude, but it's final. You could use this phrase in other customer service settings too, like at a hotel or a rental office, when explaining that a policy can't be changed. Here's another great travel-related verb, to board. When you board a plane, you get on it. You might also board a train or board a bus. But notice, we don't say board a car. This verb is usually used with larger forms of transportation where multiple people are involved. At the gate, you might hear an announcement like, we're now boarding passengers in Group A. Now, let's take a moment to go over the word luggage. This is a non-count noun in English. That means you don't say 1 luggage or 2 luggages. Instead, we say a piece of luggage or 2 pieces of luggage. Examples. She lost a piece of luggage on her flight to Paris. They had 5 pieces of luggage for their family vacation. This structure applies to other non-count nouns too, like furniture, equipment, or information. Not. Furniture's correct. Pieces of furniture. Not. Equipment's correct. Pieces of equipment. Now, let's talk about tone and emotion in airport conversations. Airports are full of stress and emotion. A useful phrase in emotional situations is, that's absurd. This means something is ridiculous or unfair. For example, they want to charge me $300 for 1 extra bag? That's absurd. Another powerful phrase is you charge an arm and a leg. This expresses frustration about prices. In a more polite form, you might say, that seems a bit expensive. Or, that's quite a hefty charge, isn't it? Lastly, don't forget the importance of clarity. When dealing with airport staff or customer service, speak slowly and clearly. Phrases like, could you please explain the baggage fee again? Is there a weight limit for carry-ons? Do I have to check this bag, or can I take it on board? These questions are not only polite, but very effective in making sure you understand everything clearly. Whether you're traveling soon or just building your vocabulary, these words and phrases will come in handy. The more you practice them, the more confident you'll feel at the airport or in any English-speaking country. Airports are unique environments where English is used in very specific and practical ways. Whether you're traveling for the first time or you're a frequent flyer, knowing the right vocabulary and expressions can make the entire process smoother and less stressful. Let's start today with a common situation, being overweight, and I don't mean your body weight. I'm talking about your luggage. When your bag weighs more than the airline allows, it's called overweight luggage. And trust me, that can cost you a lot of money. You might hear, I'm sorry, your bag is overweight. You'll need to pay an extra fee. The word overweight here functions as an adjective. You can use it in different ways. My suitcase was overweight by 5 kilos. He had to remove some items to avoid an overweight fee. Another useful term is additional suitcase. This refers to any bag beyond the allowed number. For example, if the airline allows 2 checked bags and you bring 3, that third one is your additional suitcase. Airlines often say, there is a surcharge for each additional suitcase. A surcharge is an extra cost added to a standard fee. This is a great word to learn because it's common not just in travel but in banking, electricity, and phone services too. Let's now look at how people express frustration during these situations, especially when dealing with unexpected fees. One powerful structure is, "So tell me, how much do I have to pay for this?" This question shows you want clarity, and maybe you're not happy with the situation, but it's still polite. Other variations could include, "Can you break down the fees for me? Is this amount for just one bag or all of them? Does this include the carry-on, too?" And let's not forget those colorful idioms that express how painful these charges feel. For example, "That's more than my round-trip ticket." This kind of comparison adds emphasis and helps the listener understand your shock or frustration. Let's talk about round-trip next. A round-trip ticket refers to a journey where you go to a destination and return using the same ticket. In British English, it's often called a return ticket. You can say, "I bought a round-trip ticket from New York to Tokyo." Is it cheaper to buy a round trip or two one-way tickets? When explaining the total cost of something, especially if it surprises you, English speakers often use phrases like, "That's outrageous." "I wasn't expecting that at all." "I should have read the fine print." Speaking of the fine print, this is another great term. It refers to the small details in a contract or policy that most people ignore but often include important rules or exceptions. For example, always read the fine print before agreeing to the terms. The fine print said I'd have to pay for extra baggage. Airlines often hide crucial information in the fine print, which is why it's so important to be prepared and informed, especially when speaking a second language. The truth is, modern air travel isn't just about getting from point A to point B. It's about managing communication, understanding rules, and expressing yourself clearly under pressure. And the better your English, the easier that becomes. Now, let's dig deeper into the topic of carry-on luggage, something every traveler needs to understand. If you want to avoid checked bag fees or keep your essentials close, mastering this term and its usage in English is key. Carry-on luggage refers to the bag or small suitcase you take with you onto the plane. Airlines usually allow one carry-on item and sometimes a personal item, like a purse or a laptop bag. The important rule is, your carry-on must fit either in the overhead compartment or under the seat in front of you. Let's break that down. The overhead compartment is the closed shelf above the seats where passengers store their bags. In American airports, you'll often hear, "Please place larger items in the overhead compartment and smaller personal items under the seat." You can also use overhead bin instead of compartment. Both are acceptable. For example, "That bag is too large for the overhead bin." All carry-ons must be stowed before takeoff. The verb stow means to store or put away something safely, especially in transportation. You'll hear it in instructions like, "Stow your tray tables and carry-on items." Now, what if your carry-on is too big? That's where problems start. In that case, the airline may gate check your bag, which means you hand it over at the boarding gate and get it back at the destination. It's like a last-minute checked bag. Example, your bag won't fit in the overhead bin. We'll need to gate check it. Size rules can be strict. You might see signs like, "Carry-on must not exceed 22 by 14 by 9 inches. It's always smart to measure your bag before heading to the airport. And let's not forget about liquids and electronics. Many airports follow strict security rules. For example, in English you might hear, "Liquids must be in containers of 100 milliliters or less. Place laptops in a separate bin." To express this in conversation, you can say, "Am I allowed to bring this in my carry-on? Do I need to take my tablet out at security?" Speaking of security, let's cover some key words used in that area. One of them is boarding pass, the document or digital code that allows you to board the plane. You might hear, "May I see your boarding pass and passport, please?" Another is metal detector. At security checkpoints, passengers must walk through a metal detector to ensure safety. Please remove your belt and walk through the metal detector. Now imagine a common scenario. You've packed your bag carefully. At the airport, you're asked to remove your liquids, take off your shoes, and pull out your laptop. You might feel rushed or confused. That's when you can use polite but clear English to navigate the situation. "I'm not sure what to take out. Could you guide me? Is this allowed in carry-on luggage?" These are excellent phrases to use when you're unsure, and they also show confidence and respect. Being able to talk clearly and comfortably about carry-ons, compartments, and security checks will definitely improve your travel experience and make your English sound more natural and fluent. Let's now shift our focus to another key part of flying, checking in at the airport. This process can be quick and easy, or frustrating and confusing, depending on how well you understand both the procedure and the language used. The phrase to check in is extremely common. It means to register yourself for a flight. You can check in at the airport counter, at a self-service kiosk, or online before arriving. A typical question you might hear is, "Have you checked in yet?" You can respond with, "Yes, I checked in online." "No, I still need to check in and drop off my luggage." Notice that we don't say check into a flight. That's incorrect. The correct phrase is simply check in. However, we do say check into when talking about hotels. We checked into the hotel at 3 p.m. When you check in at the airport, you may be asked questions like, "May I see your ID and boarding pass? Do you have any bags to check? Did you pack your bags yourself?" That last question is a common one and has to do with airline security. When asked, "Did you pack your bags yourself?" they want to confirm that no one else added anything to your luggage. Always answer honestly. Now, let's explore the topic of weighing luggage. Right after check-in, your bags will be placed on a scale to be weighed. The scale is the device that shows how heavy your suitcase is. You might hear, "Your bag is 26 kilos. The limit is 23 kilos. Would you like to remove some items or pay the excess baggage fee?" The term excess baggage refers to any weight or number of bags that goes beyond the allowed limit. There are usually two choices. Remove items from your bag. Pay an extra fee, sometimes a very high one. Useful phrases for this situation. Is there a fee for excess baggage? Can I move some items to my carry-on instead? How much is the charge per extra kilo? Sometimes, travelers get creative and wear layers of clothing to avoid overweight fees. In English, you might say, "He wore 3 jackets to avoid paying for excess baggage." Another helpful word here is limit. This word is often used with both weight and size. The weight limit is 23 kilograms per bag. The size limit for carry-ons is posted near the gate. Now, let's touch on fragile items. If you're checking something breakable, it's useful to tell the staff, "This item is fragile, can you mark it?" They'll usually put a fragile sticker on it, although it's not a guarantee of careful handling. Being able to use all these terms correctly, check-in, scale, excess baggage, fragile, limit, helps you navigate the check-in process like a pro. You won't feel lost and you'll sound much more fluent and capable in English. In international airports, clear communication can make all the difference. Once you've checked in and dropped off your luggage, the next step in your airport journey is usually going through security screening. This process might feel routine, but for non-native English speakers, it can be intimidating if you're unsure about what's being asked or expected. That's why learning the common language and expressions used at airport security is incredibly helpful. Let's start with the phrase security screening. This refers to the process where passengers and their belongings are checked to ensure safety. You'll walk through machines like a metal detector. Your bags will go through an X-ray scanner, and sometimes you may even receive a pat-down, a light physical inspection by a security officer. Here are some phrases you might hear from airport staff. Please remove your shoes, belt, and jacket. Take all electronic devices out of your bag. Liquids must be placed in a clear plastic bag. Step forward, please. Do you have anything in your pockets? To prepare, it helps to know what you're allowed to carry. For example, liquids must typically be in containers no larger than 100 milliliters, and they must all fit into a 1-liter, resealable plastic bag. Useful vocabulary here includes liquids, container, plastic bag, electronics, bin, as in, place your items in the bin. You can also use polite questions to communicate better. Is it okay to leave my tablet in the bag? Do I need to remove my shoes? Where should I put my passport? After you pass through the metal detector or full-body scanner, you might hear, "You're good to go." Please wait here for a moment. You've been randomly selected for additional screening. That last phrase, randomly selected, means it wasn't personal. It's part of airport procedure. If it happens, stay calm and cooperative. It's completely normal. Now, once you're through security, you might need to find your departure gate. This is the area where passengers wait to board their flight. You can say, "Excuse me, where is gate 24? Has boarding started for flight 763? You'll often see or hear these announcements. Flight 763 to Frankfurt is now boarding at gate 24. This is the final boarding call for flight 763. All passengers must proceed to the gate immediately. When you reach the gate, you'll present your boarding pass and possibly your passport. Staff might say, "May I scan your boarding pass? Can I see your passport, please?" It's also helpful to know terms like boarding group, the order in which passengers are allowed to board. Final call, last chance to board the flight. Delay, a flight that's not on time. On-time departure, the flight is leaving as scheduled. Understanding these words and phrases helps you stay informed and confident throughout the process. You won't feel confused or left behind, and if something unexpected happens, you'll have the English you need to ask questions, understand announcements, and take action. That's what real fluency is about, being ready for real-life situations, even in high-stress places like the airport. Now that you've made it past security and found your departure gate, it's time to prepare for boarding, the process of getting onto the airplane. This stage may seem simple, but it includes specific language and customs that are important to understand in English-speaking environments. Let's begin with the verb to board. In travel English, this verb means to get on a plane, bus, or train. You'll hear airline staff say, "Now boarding Group A. Passengers seated in rows 25 to 40 may now board." Here, boarding group refers to the order in which people are allowed to get on the plane. Airlines use boarding groups to keep things organized and efficient. You can ask, "What boarding group am I in? Has my group been called yet?" You'll often hear announcements that sound like this. This is the final boarding call for Flight 509 to London. Passengers should have their boarding passes ready. Please board the aircraft in an orderly fashion. Notice how the phrase final boarding call means this is your last chance to get on the plane before the doors close. It's a good one to recognize quickly, especially if you're late. Once you hand over your boarding pass, the airline staff may scan it and say, "Enjoy your flight. You're in seat 14C on the aisle." Let's talk about seat types now. On a plane, seats are usually labeled by row numbers and letters. The letters tell you where you're sitting. Window seat, next to the window. Aisle seat, next to the walking path. Middle seat, between two passengers. You might hear or say, "Is this seat 12B? Would you mind switching seats? I prefer a window seat if possible." If your seat is taken or there's confusion, it's useful to ask politely, "I think this is my seat. Could we check your boarding pass? I believe I'm in seat 18A." Now, let's cover a few key expressions for settling in on the plane. Once you're in your seat, flight attendants will make announcements. You might hear, "Please fasten your seatbelt. Place your carry-on luggage in the overhead bin or under the seat. Turn off all electronic devices or switch them to airplane mode." Let's quickly explain fasten. It means to close or secure something like a seatbelt. Please fasten your seatbelt for takeoff. Another helpful word is turbulence. This refers to sudden movement during the flight caused by changes in air pressure. It can feel bumpy or shaky. The announcement may say, "Please remain seated due to turbulence." You can talk about it later using phrases like, "The flight was smooth, hardly any turbulence. We experienced a bit of turbulence over the ocean." Now, if you need something during the flight, it's perfectly fine to ask a flight attendant politely. For example, "Could I have a blanket, please? Excuse me, may I have some water? Is there a vegetarian option available?" Learning how to ask for help and communicate with a flight crew using polite and clear English makes your journey much more comfortable and confident. These small conversations, asking for a drink, changing seats, or following instructions, are fantastic opportunities to practice real-life English in action. Now that you're on the plane and seated, let's explore the language and experiences that happen during the flight. From meals to announcements to interacting with the cabin crew, this is another great chance to build your travel vocabulary and improve your listening skills in English. Let's begin with in-flight announcements. These are the messages you hear from the captain or flight attendants over the loudspeaker. You might hear something like, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We'll be cruising at an altitude of 35,000 feet. We expect a smooth flight with a little turbulence near our destination. We will begin our descent shortly. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts." Let's break down a few key words from those announcements. Altitude, the height at which the airplane is flying. Cruising, flying steadily at a certain height. Descent, the process of going down toward the destination. Cabin crew, the flight attendants who help passengers. Now, let's talk about the in-flight meal service. On longer flights, you might be offered food and drinks. The flight attendant might ask, "Would you like chicken or pasta for your meal? What would you like to drink? Would you care for tea or coffee?" Here are some useful phrases you can use. "Could I have a bottle of water, please? Is the meal vegetarian? Can I have another napkin?" Another common part of the in-flight experience is filling out arrival forms, also known as customs declarations or landing cards. On international flights, the crew may hand out forms that ask about your travel details. You might see questions like, "What is the purpose of your visit? Where will you be staying? Are you bringing any food or agricultural items?" You can ask the flight attendant, "Do I need to fill this out if I'm just transiting? Can I borrow a pen? What do I write under flight number?" These forms are often collected before landing, or you may have to present them at immigration. Make sure your information is clear and honest. Let's not forget about the phrase duty-free. Duty-free shops on the plane or at the airport allow you to buy items like perfume, alcohol, or chocolates without paying local taxes. You might hear, "Duty-free shopping will begin shortly. Please have your passport ready for duty-free purchases." And while you're on board, if you want to relax, it's useful to know how to adjust your seat or use the entertainment system. Some practical phrases include, "How do I recline my seat? Where's the headphone jack? My screen isn't working. Can someone assist me?" It's also common to want to stretch your legs during a long flight. You can say, "I'm just going to walk around a bit. Excuse me, may I pass? Is it okay to use the restroom now?" Being polite, patient, and clear in your English while in flight not only makes your journey smoother, but also shows confidence and cultural awareness. Airplanes are places where many people from different countries share the same space, so respectful and effective communication really matters. As your flight nears its end, it's time to get familiar with the arrival procedures. These final steps of your journey involve listening to instructions, collecting your belongings, passing through immigration, and picking up your luggage. And just like earlier stages, using the right English phrases can make the whole process much easier. Let's begin with a typical arrival announcement. "We will be landing in approximately 30 minutes. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts." Cabin crew, please prepare the cabin for landing. Please ensure your seat backs and tray tables are in their upright and locked position. This is when flight attendants check that everything is safe for landing. You'll also be reminded to turn off or switch your electronic devices to airplane mode. You might hear, "All portable electronic devices must now be switched off and stowed." The word stowed means safely put away. That includes your phone, tablet, headphones, and anything loose. It's polite and helpful to follow these instructions closely. They're for your safety. Now, once the plane lands, you'll hear an announcement like this. "Welcome to Toronto. Local time is 8:15 a.m. and the temperature is 12 degrees Celsius. Please remain seated until the aircraft has come to a complete stop and the seatbelt sign has been turned off." After landing, many passengers get up too soon. But in English-speaking environments, it's common courtesy to remain seated until the sign goes off. When it does, you'll hear, "You may now collect your belongings and disembark through the front door." Let's talk about the word disembark. It means to leave the plane. It's a more formal term but common in travel English. Example, "Passengers will disembark row by row." Please disembark in an orderly fashion. Next comes immigration, where your passport will be checked by a border official. This step is required for all international travelers. The officer might ask, "What is the purpose of your visit? How long will you be staying? Where will you be staying? Do you have a return ticket?" Here are some strong, simple answers you can give. "I'm here for tourism. I'll be staying for 10 days. I'm staying at the Grand Hotel in the city center." Always keep your answers short, clear, and honest. If you're unsure, you can say, "Could you please repeat the question? I'm not sure I understand. Can you explain?" After immigration, you'll head to baggage claim, the area where passengers pick up their checked luggage. Look for signs that say baggage claim or arrivals. You'll see a carousel, which is the moving belt where bags come out. Useful phrases include, "Which carousel is for flight 882 from Istanbul?" "I can't find my bag. Where should I go?" "This isn't my suitcase. Mine looks similar but has a red tag." If your bag is missing, you'll need to speak to the airline staff at the lost luggage desk. You can say, "My bag hasn't arrived. I checked in 2 bags, but only one came through. Here is my baggage tag and boarding pass." Being calm and using the right phrases will help you solve the problem faster. At this point, you may also have to pass through customs, especially if you're entering a country that regulates what you can bring in. You might be asked, "Are you bringing in any food, plants, or large amounts of cash?" If not, you can simply reply, "No, I have nothing to declare." That phrase, "nothing to declare," means you're not carrying anything that requires inspection. By understanding and using these phrases confidently, you'll be able to complete the final part of your trip smoothly and with ease. Arrival may be the last step of your flight, but it's another opportunity to practice and improve your English in a real-world, high-stakes setting. Once you've cleared customs and collected your luggage, your air travel experience is almost complete, but not quite. There are still a few final situations where using natural and accurate English can make a big difference, especially when arranging ground transportation or resolving any last-minute issues at the airport. Let's begin with transportation. After exiting the terminal, you'll see signs for taxis, rideshare pickups, buses, and rental cars. If you're in a new city, knowing how to ask for help clearly is essential. Here are some common and useful phrases. "Where can I find a taxi stand? Is there an airport shuttle to the city center? Which exit should I use for rideshare pickups? How far is the train station from here?" These questions are simple but powerful. You can ask airport staff, information desk agents, or even fellow passengers. Don't hesitate to ask for directions. People are often willing to help if you ask politely. Now, if you've booked a rental car, you might need to find the rental car counter. At the desk, typical questions include, "Do you have a reservation? Would you like to add insurance? What time will you be returning the car?" And here are some phrases you can use as the customer. "I have a reservation under the name of Hassan. Is GPS included in the rental? Can I return the car at a different location?" If you're taking public transport, look for key signs. Bus terminal, subway/metro, tickets/fares, route map. And remember, when asking about tickets or schedules, you can say, "Where can I buy a ticket to downtown? How often do the buses run? Is there a direct train to the city center?" Next, let's talk about lost items. Airports are busy places, and it's common for travelers to misplace phones, passports, or personal belongings. If this happens to you, go directly to Lost and Found. Here's how to ask for help. "I think I left my phone on the plane. Where should I go? Is there a Lost and Found office in this terminal? I lost my passport. Can someone help me report it?" Clear, calm English is essential in stressful situations. Even when you're upset, try to stay polite. It increases your chances of getting quick assistance. Finally, before you leave the airport, you may want to exchange money, grab a snack, or connect to Wi-Fi. Here are some helpful phrases for those situations. "Is there a currency exchange nearby? How do I connect to the airport Wi-Fi? Do you accept credit cards or is it cash only?" At this point, you've navigated nearly every part of the air travel experience using real, useful English. From checking in to dealing with luggage, going through security, boarding the plane, and arriving at your destination, You've been building language skills that will help you in so many situations, not just in airports, but in hotels, train stations, and conversations with native speakers around the world. Thank you for being a part of the English Podcast Zone.
Next, please. Hello, sir. May I see your passport, please?
Yes, here you go.
Will you be checking any bags today?
Yes, I'd like to check 3 pieces.
I'm sorry, sir. Airline policy only allows 2 pieces of checked luggage at 20 kilograms each, plus 1 piece of carry-on luggage. I will have to charge you extra for the additional suitcase.
What? Why? I'm taking an intercontinental flight. I'm flying 16,000 kilometers. How am I supposed to take only 2 20-kilo bags? That's absurd.
I'm sorry, sir. There's nothing I can do. You cannot board the flight with that large bag either. Carry-on bags must fit in the overhead compartment or under your seat. That bag is clearly too big.
Now I see. You charge next to nothing for an international ticket. When it comes to charging for any other small thing, you charge an arm and a leg. So tell me, miss, how much will I have to pay for all of this?
Let's see. $625 US.
That's more than my round-trip ticket!
Okay, so airline policies, luggage, it's always a problem, right? Most of the time, you always end up paying overweight when you travel.
Yeah, I know that this happened to me once, and it was really expensive.
Really, what happened?
I was flying on an intercontinental flight from India back to Europe, and I had too many extra bags, but I really needed to bring them, and so it cost me $6,000.
$6,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
So my credit card was pretty maxed out after that.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure many of our users probably suffered similar experiences like this, so please come to our website and share it with us at englishpod.com.
That's right. Marco and I are always around to answer your questions, so please check us out. And thanks for downloading, you guys. Until next time, goodbye.
The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word.
A document showing the identity of someone when outside his country.
Passport.
Register bags with the airline and give them to be put on the plane.
Check.
Piece of luggage. 1 bag.
Piece.
The bags that one can carry on to the plane.
Carry-on luggage.
Between continents.
Intercontinental.
Get on the plane.
Board.
Very cheap, inexpensive.
Next to nothing.
Phrase used to indicate that something is very expensive.
An arm and a leg.
A device that senses the presence of metal.
Metal detector.
A pass that authorizes passengers to get on an airplane.
Boarding pass.
An instrument or machine for weighing.
Scale.
A short stop or break in a journey usually imposed by scheduling requirements.
Layover.
A trip from one place to another and back, usually over the same route.
Round trip. Let's try that faster.
The bags that one can carry on to the plane.
Carry-on luggage.
A document showing the identity of someone when outside his country.
Passport.
Register bags with the airline and give them to be put on the plane.
Check.
Between continents.
Intercontinental.
An instrument or machine for weighing.
Scale.
A device that senses the presence of metal.
Metal detector.
Piece of luggage. One bag.
Piece.
A short stop or break in a journey, usually imposed by scheduling requirements.
Layover.
A pass that authorizes passengers to get on an airplane.
Boarding pass.
Very cheap, inexpensive.
Next to nothing.
A trip from one place to another and back, usually over the same route.
Round trip.
Phrase used to indicate that something is very expensive.
An arm and a leg.
Get on the plane.
Board. Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
It's absurd to think that the world will end in 2012. He made one of the most absurd comments I've ever heard. That's absurd. I never cheated on my wife.
Next to nothing.
Do you like my new house? It was so cheap. It cost next to nothing.
Next to nothing.
Let's go to Thailand. Tickets cost next to nothing right now.
Next to nothing.
The real estate agent charged me next to nothing for his commission, so I got a really good deal.
An arm and a leg.
Be careful with the new carpet. It cost me an arm and a leg.
An arm and a leg.
Can you believe how expensive homes are in New York? It'll cost you an arm and a leg to buy a small house.
An arm and a leg.
We paid an arm and a leg for our new home theater, and then it got stolen.
Check.
Frank was at the airport 3 hours before his flight because he had to check a lot of luggage.
Check.
Excuse me, is this the counter where I can check oversized luggage?
Check.
Most airlines only allow one piece of luggage to be checked. How am I supposed to fit the dog in the car? There are 10 people in there already. How am I supposed to get to work if her car is in the shop? How are we supposed to know the answer to that? It's impossible.